hate you.
I hate you.
Good.
I hate you in the morning. I think that's a song, right?
I don't fucking know. What do you want from me?
To stop raging.
Well, that'll never happen.
Heyo. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode.
You did it again.
Another episode of Brotherhood Without Manners. Welcome to another episode of Brotherhood Without Manners, your favorite full spoiler reread podcast of George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire series, which we normally are reading a Game of Thrones currently. However, this is the big one, folks. This is our entire series wrap-up of the television show.
Yay.
As always, I'm Zach. This is Nate.
Hey.
We are your hosts. We are Brothers Without Manners, and we really like both the show and the book version of A Game of Thrones and
Yes.
Song of Ice and Fire.
Yes.
And so,
Yes.
literally, the internet's been on fire about, well, not literally, because you can't stop the internet.
It's not literally been on fire.
But it's been just on fire with people hating on season 8. I think the negativity has way outweighed the positive on it.
Between petitions and just hate all
Which,
around,
actually,
it's
that's
crazy.
perfect. Right at the start of the show, I don't support that petition. I think that petition is one of the rudest things I've ever seen in my entire life. Demanding that a show be completely redone is an insult to all the actors, producers, writers, set dressers, costume designers, all the people that put in that time. And I think that's my personal opinion. I think it's extremely disrespectful, and I think that petition is sort of shame on you for passing that around. It's people, regardless of if you liked it or not,
you don't
people
have to,
still
nobody's
poured their
making
heart
you,
and soul into it. And,
asking you to be forced into liking something. You don't have to like it. But that doesn't mean that you have to say that it needs to be completely fucking
to me, it sounds like a whiny child.
Because,
I
was going to say, in that case, maybe your parents should start over, and they should try again, and just completely remake
it,
you.
yeah.
Like, fuck you, destroy all evidence of you existing, and they'll just make a new kid.
I mean, these actors, these writers, these directors, they tried their hardest to produce something that was quality and entertaining. And
so that being said, we did enjoy it.
I enjoyed
thoroughly.
The fuck out of it. I know Nate did. We've discussed it constantly since it's ended, and it's all positive to me. The coffee cup making it in sucked. That was kind of lazy to me.
The water bottle behind
the water
Bram's leg,
bottle.
sure.
But, however, to me, when I think about those things, even with the fucking water bottle, I still think all of season 8 is better than Dorne. The storyline, like,
True story.
I can hardly stomach watching the Dorne scenes. I really want to skip them when I do rewatches of the show. I still think season 8 is better than everything they did in Dorne. Every single scene that was shot in Dorne. They're beautiful, yeah, the locations are great, but the story, what they did to the story, they just stomped all over it. I think that's worse than what they did to the story in season 8.
So a few things. We did have a lot of listeners write in about this. We're gonna we're gonna kind of touch on each listener as we're going through this episode, just because they touched on so many different topics themselves. With that being said, I did want to bring up one question was brought up to me. I forget by which listener specifically. It was just in a general chat thing. And the question was posed, if you could have had any one thing from the books in the show that wasn't there, what would it have been? And, we tossed around a few ideas, but now that the show's completely done, with what we have for the books so far, what would you have liked to have seen in the show that was not in the show?
Probably Dorne done right. In the books, I love the Dorne storyline. Duran actually did have some things going on, and in the show,
for a long
nothing.
time.
And the Sand Snakes, they're each well developed. They're their own person. They're
scheming.
They
have different
each have their own
motives
designs. And different ways to achieve those. Some by war, some by subtlety and subterfuge and shit like that. So Dorne for me, if I could have gotten
proper Dorne,
obviously that would have extended the season count. But yeah, if I could have pulled Dorne in from the books to the show, that would have been mine. What would you have?
Stoneheart.
Stoneheart, yeah.
Probably Lady Stoneheart. And again, this is in no way shitting on what we did get. I enjoyed, mostly everything about the show. I enjoyed the show as a whole. Dorne is one of my biggest qualms with the show as well.
Well, that plays into one of my sort of overall questions was sort of book versus show, what we liked and what we didn't, because we also get the Arya and Tywin scene.
Yes,
in
which
season
is so good.
2, I believe.
So good.
And I think it's better than the books
with
version,
Roose
with Roose Bolton and Weiss and all that stuff. Then again, I had Stoneheart written. We get Catelyn Stark's resurrection in the books. We don't get that in the show at all. And it's a big deal. And I think they spoke on it about the show that they sort of didn't want to make that death seem less impactful and significant by bringing her right back, which I understand. But Stoneheart is a completely new character, and it's a whole ominous presence out there in these worlds.
It's almost like another Night King style. Yeah, it's got that supernatural
but it's
presence.
Lurking south with us in the Riverlands, and she's interacting with characters we care about.
Just so scary.
And so there was that. Littlefinger's entire story, I think, was, and again, as far as things that I think were done worse than season 8, Littlefinger's story, I think they did a huge disservice to that character. In him, I loved him getting played by the Stark girls, because I do think that's how his downfall should be, is at the hands of Sansa specifically. They really kind of dumbed him down. Same thing happened, and I'll include Varys. I wasn't a fan of what they did with Varys, obviously.
His ending itself, his death scene was good. It was well done and everything.
Varys, yeah.
It was that they were very much so juggling his story. They didn't know where to go
well,
with
it.
Well,
it's become common knowledge now that Conleth Hill, who plays Varys, was not pleased with it either. In the Last Watch, or whatever the hell the documentary was called, you can see when he's at the table read how unhappy he is. And it's just, Varys is a hard character unless you really know what the original creator had in mind for him.
Yeah.
Especially with them, and that ties into Young and Old Griff, especially with them negating them.
Well, yeah, because, we barely know what Varys truly... we have a general idea, especially with, the epilogue of Dance with Dragons.
In our latest reread chapters, we've gotten a couple hints at what he's going on with in the book.
Even beyond that, like where we're at the final end stages in the books... we know what we think he wants, but he's still such a mystery as to what he's doing, why he's so motivated to feel. Which I feel like
is it's intentional that every time we get a question answered about Varys, we get 6 more. Yeah, and so I think that when his final revelation comes, regardless of if it's at his death scene as well, if Varys makes it or not, I still think he's got a couple last punches that he can throw out as far as info and things he knows.
Since we're mentioning some of the negatives and such here, I do want to bring up our first listener, which is old-time listener Sid.
Yep.
And his thoughts on the show for the most part are very negative. He wasn't. And I don't want to say that he's being negative or anything like that. He did not enjoy it.
He didn't enjoy it.
Him and his wife, and again, that's perfectly fine. We have nothing against anybody.
Specifically, I believe they weren't fans of Arya going west of Westeros.
He didn't really like that. He didn't. That didn't make sense to them. Then he was, he thought that it was pretty cool that Sansa was queen in the north, but beyond that, there just wasn't a whole lot going for him.
Yeah.
And a lot of the standard complaints, the rushing, and even those of us who liked it know that it was a little bit rushed.
It definitely was rushed, yeah.
We are willing to look past the rushing part of it just because we mentioned it in a recent reread episode. Martin is notorious for it. He's very good at jumping from one point of view to the next, and 6 weeks have gone by, and we don't realize it because of how smoothly he transitions.
Yeah.
And so that's all about how it should have, just the ways that they could have done it.
Well, more time is what we all really would have wished for with this show. More time to see Dany's descent to the Mad Queen, and more time with Jaime's decision to return to Cersei, and all these things. I think they did my boy Tyrion a disservice by not really utilizing him in a bigger impact in the final sort of conclusion of things. Yeah,
Tyrion's another thing we'll go into a little heavier later on.
Sid at a point,
Sid, yeah. And so, we're sorry to hear you didn't enjoy it as much. But
my thoughts on the Arya going west of Westeros thing, and I have a big kind of long thing about this, but I think that Arya is sort of meant to embody the old adage of it's the journey, not the destination. Where with Arya, there never really is going to be a
final resting spot.
In a definitive, this is what I'm going to do with my life. Like, for her, it's on the run. She needs to stay moving because that's Arya. That's what she does. That's what she's done. And so the Faceless Men, I know a lot of people were angry that her training didn't come up in the show. I think it did. It was used to kill the Night King. I just think it could have been showcased a little better. I still love the scene where she does it. I still think it's earned for Arya's character. I know a lot of people wanted Jon Snow to get it, but I feel like Jon Snow, once his resurrection came, he wasn't set up to be the hero anymore. But Arya, I think, is just meant to be this. She's always sort of got this wanderlust, this I'm going to go and see what else is there and keep exploring and using my training and learning more and training more and trying to get better.
And just seeing more and more of this world.
And that's it.
Exploring.
So with her going west of Westeros, that's what I took it for her, is that the end of the show is not the end of Arya's story. Whereas it might be for someone like Jon. Jon's probably going to go north, live out his life, and die peacefully.
And that's actually one of my predictions, and even further than that, I had said that I don't know if I would be happy with Arya's story if anything happened where she didn't end up going west of Westeros.
I was convinced that either she was going to be dead or it would have to be something like that.
And so I'm quite happy with that, but
I get why you would not be, Sid, and you know, I'm sorry that you didn't enjoy the final season. Hopefully it doesn't ruin the rest of what I think are great episodes early on, because I do think the writing took a bit of a decline at a certain point, but I disagree with the fact that it was after the source material, because season 6 was stellar. It was bombshell season all the way through. That's when we get the Hodor reveal, and I know that's a point that George supposedly gave them, but they still really didn't have much to go off of, from what I understand. So they navigated their way through that season really great. Season 7, it floundered a little bit
for similar reasons that
with the rush, jetpacking people around and that type of stuff. And so it was really just logistical limitations, which
and that's
sucks.
Which is similar. Todd Bradley at tbrad0415 on Twitter wrote us a fairly well worded message, and he agreed that it felt rushed. He enjoyed it overall as we did. But he had posed a few questions to us, and I think this is a decent time to kind of bring those up a little bit. So he did, real quick, just to give an idea of what he was thinking. He really enjoyed the Dany and Jon story. Thought it was tragic and beautiful.
I agree.
And especially he enjoyed the love and duty scene between Tyrion and Jon.
Beautiful stuff.
He thought it was awesome that Jon went north of the Wall. Thought it was perfect. You know, the way that the group that he's helped to survive throughout all of this, even though it was always his enemy from day one, he's now helping to lead back north where they belong. Arya is badass is basically what he said. And then Sansa makes sense taking the north, and he thought it was a good ending and conclusion to her story. So the questions that he brings up relate to Bran.
Yeah.
So I think, this will be a decent time to kind of bring up the Bran stuff. And his first part is, do we think that Bran had known all along that he was going to be king?
This was a question I posed to you as well.
And you posed it to me before certain spoilers were released. I call it a spoiler. It's a kind of fucked spoiler, so even though we're full spoiler,
this one,
I don't want to.
If you guys, I don't really think we should reveal that on here because it's sort of meta spoiler.
Yeah.
And so it's an interview that the actor who played Bran, Isaac Hempstead Wright, did with I'm not sure which show or which
I forget also, but
he revealed something George R.R. Martin had told to him about his character. If you're interested in that sort of thing, look it up. I'm sure you'll have no trouble
but because of how meta it truly is, we're not sure how we feel about it. So
it was a little bit of a spoiler about bookish stuff, and it was just interesting. And so I had asked you the similar question of, do you think Bran knew the entire time?
Yeah, and so I feel personally, and I really feel like I have to lead with, I really liked what D&D did throughout the series, but I don't think that they had written it with that in mind. Granted, they do have a lot of clues that point that way, so who am I to say what somebody was thinking when they were writing? But it almost seemed, and granted, I think it's because of how little is so, maybe when I go and rewatch it again, things will be right there. But it seemed like they were just grasping at, oh, well, he's here, we can throw out this line and make it look like the dominoes were set up the whole time.
Yeah, I don't think it's so much that Bran knew. I think maybe, if anything, after the Night King was defeated and Bran was sort of chilling around Winterfell, he was then like, oh, yeah, so now we got to deal with Cersei, and he was doing his green seeing stuff, and maybe there he was kind of like, I'm probably the best candidate to
I had
be
better
king,
head south.
and so that's why I'm going south. I don't think it was this plan from the very second he got his green sight to where it was, this is what he was going to be.
Yes, so the next question follows up with that pretty good, and it's, for the few episodes before that, we had gotten a lot of, and even last season, Bran can't inherit titles. He's not Bran Stark anymore. Why is it that he mentioned that so often and then immediately went and took Westeros? And I have some words on that, is that, first of all, Bran Stark did not inherit Westeros, and we have to remember that. He's Bran the Broken. He has a different sigil, and I know that the small folk are going to still see it as Bran Stark, and, you know, it's got that, which will segue decently into listener Gigi's email about breaking the wheel.
Yeah.
But
no, he's Bran Stark, the Three-Eyed Raven.
He's the Three-Eyed Raven, and so he's not actually a Stark inheriting it. He's the Three-Eyed Raven. He's Bran the Broken inheriting it. And I know that kinda is the same thing.
Well, I think the point of the question is why is that sort of the point? Is that he couldn't accept Winterfell because it's a familial,
and so that's where I was going.
But the kingship is more general. And
exactly. So I think a lot of it has to do with he couldn't inherit Winterfell, because if he did that, he would then be king and have Winterfell.
Yeah.
And I think maybe when he was being told those things, there was the potential that he did know that he was going to be on the throne.
Yeah.
I can't accept them, because I have a larger duty to the throne
awaiting me.
But again, I don't think that Bran Stark inherited Westeros, so I don't really think that everything necessarily applies to that, because they never had the titles or the lineage to claim the throne.
Yeah.
Until the throne was no longer claimable. And so he had to come in afterwards, and
that's what Tyrion does when he suggests Bran, is he sort of makes it more as Bran isn't really a human. He's our history. He's the physical representation of all that we were and are and have been. And so Bran represents more of this walking, talking representation of humanity in this world. So let's make him king, because he's got the foresight of every mistake of every other king that's ever come before him.
Right.
And so, yeah, I tend to agree with the fact that it's more of Bran the Broken inheriting than it is Bran Stark inheriting. And hopefully that answers your question a little bit.
Right.
But I don't know. I was surprised by a lot of what they did, but honestly, an ending for Game of Thrones that checks every single box that I would have wanted checked probably would have gotten more hate than this one.
Yeah, I think that if every box that I wanted checked was checked, I would actually hate it, because I think that that's part of what makes Game of Thrones so good.
And that's what
it exceeds your expectations.
Yeah,
constantly.
I've mentioned it on a few of our other shows, but I was a big fan of Lost when Lost was on. And listeners, I don't know if you've seen Lost, I don't know if you've watched Lost, but there was a lot of controversy about the ending of Lost. The final season, people hated it or loved it, or it was the worst thing ever. There was a petition to redo it. It was the whole big deal. And I happened to be on the side of the fence where I loved it, because with Lost, I was taught and I understood that they weren't going to hold your hand and fill in every little detail for you. You had to fill it in that was the fun of Lost, was there were so many mysteries, there were so many questions. And so I felt, and it sounds elitist and I don't mean for it to, but I felt a little more prepared coming into Game of Thrones, having been a large fan of a show like that, where I was on fan theory boards and the water cooler chats. I was talking at school with all my friends about Lost last night. I was calling you on the phone, freaking out about Lost last night. And so I think I was just a little more prepared that, yeah, we're not going to get to see all every little minor scene that we would like to, that they used to be able to spend time on because that's what the show was and was building for. And I understood that. So I don't think my expectations were that high for season 8, honestly. And so they were easily exceeded, and it did to me. It did so in spades. Again, the image of Jon and Dany in the throne room when he stabs her with the Iron Throne in the back, that's burned into my brain. That is, I am in love with that image.
Amelia Clarke fucking killed this.
Every single actor
absolutely
nailed it this season. They all brought their A game. You can tell that it meant a lot to them. It was the last season, the last time they were being these characters.
So we just went over a little bit on Bran's ending and what happened with him. And so with that, let's talk about the guy that got him into that position, Tyrion. And now, I can't say I'm disappointed at all with Tyrion's spot. You know, he's Hand of the King. He's being punished for all of his stuff. He's living a nice, comfortable, quiet life where he'll live to the ripe old age of 80, where he'll die with a drink in his hand and a whore's mouth around his cock.
Well, a girl's mouth around his cock doesn't have to
be a whore. It's probably going to be a whore with Tyrion.
I don't hate where he ends up, but I do wish that he had a little more part to play using his mind. And that was sort of what bothered me about Tyrion, was he just suddenly was given a lot of bad advice. And at the end, it kind of became this, he was taking the stance of he didn't want her to turn, but it faltered with the show because they were trying to cram Dany's turn in so quickly that Tyrion just kind of came off as obnoxious and not giving the right advice at the right moment.
Yeah, like he was purposefully doing things.
And I'd like to say that in the book, I expect it will be much better because Tyrion's my favorite. I like where he ended up in the show. I really like that. In the show, they kind of painted him more in my mind, especially this going back to the scene where Dany makes him Hand of the King. That Tyrion really just wants to be validated in his wisdom and his knowledge. He wants to advise someone who will listen and take his thoughts seriously and not treat him like an inferior. And so with Bran the Broken, who literally has no aspirations for any personal gain, will do just that. He will listen to everyone's opinion equally and then select the most valid. And that's really all Tyrion wants, is someone to validate his opinion, his knowledge, and listen to him and take what he has to say seriously. So as far as show Tyrion, I think it wraps up nicely. He's handed the king to Bran the Broken. They're leading Westeros into a new age. Obviously, it's not going to be democracy. They're not quite ready for that. Right. But it's going somewhere positive.
It is heading in a direction where it needs to go. And so with that being said, let's mention Gigi's email about the wheel not being broken.
Oh, I was going to go.
Wanted to go to Sid. Okay. I want to do Sid after.
After the wheel Gigi's. Is a big disappointment to me as well. Dany, I thought that was a great addition to Dany's arc. Was this figurative wheel of this rule, because
this rebellion.
We've talked about it with the book, where with the Night's Watch, there's these set laws where no matter what you do, even if you're right or wrong, you're dead. And that's not fair. That's not the way life should be lived. And so Dany's idea of breaking this cycle, the way we've been living that isn't working clearly, was great. It was a great motivator for her character.
I think the wheel not being broken is exactly the point, though.
It's the part of the tragedy of Dany's character.
If Dany was ruling, the wheel would be broken. Dany died. And so, yes, Tyrion still is going to do what he can to break what's currently in place.
You think if Dany lived, that the wheel would be broken?
Because I don't. No.
To
I
me,
think
the tragedy of
the
it
plan.
was that she became another spoke.
No, absolutely, she did.
She got consumed by the wheel.
That's one of the notes I have here, that because Gigi says that she almost felt that she almost grieved over the fact that Dany did not succeed in conquering the entire world because of how noble and pure her vision was at the start.
Yeah.
And all I could think about when she mentioned that and when it was all occurring is, why is, and everyone flipped out about Dany burning King's Landing. How the fuck is it different than Aegon burning Harrenhal?
Yeah.
Killing these people that are refusing to, it's no different. They're still just people that don't want to serve that person.
Well, I mean,
so she's burning them.
And even in the show, Dany slaughtered the Dothraki horse lords.
Right.
Like, she burned them alive in this build. Like, she's capable of it.
And
she's always been capable of it.
I feel like I don't think it would break the wheel, But I think it would reestablish. It would basically be an Aegon the Conqueror. We're going to reunite things. And it would be that, time of peace for a while. I think she would, absolutely, in my opinion. Had she succeeded, not been killed, things would have been good when she completed the conquest.
Well, that's it.
But how long would it take?
Westeros would have been torched because she had no love there.
Yes.
The entirety of Westeros
She would have had to start over.
And I think at that point, when she torches Westeros, there isn't going to be a stop. It's going to be a you listen to me or burn by. And a majority of it is going to be fuck off. And then it just becomes a world dominated by this insane
tyrant. Yeah.
And I think that is the point. That's the tragedy of Daenerys' character. Yes, it was rushed as fuck, but it does make sense in alignment with her, where she's got all this power, and in Meereen she is built up as this fucking goddess among men, just everything to these people. It ain't gonna be the same fucking way when she goes to Westeros, especially in the books, not with Fagon and Jon Con and every other goddamn thing that's going on there.
We always tend to forget that, Edric Storm is a thing.
Edric Storm's out there.
Gendry's still floating about.
You got the Dornish who are trying to crown Myrcella.
Right, exactly.
It's a whole big deal.
There's a lot of different things that are happening. And so, yes, I definitely agree that it was a very noble and pure thing. And in regards to breaking the wheel, we have to remember that the wheel, it is figurative. It's not just going to immediately, it's broken, it's done, we're back on track with something proper. That's not a wheel anymore.
They did manage to break tradition of the kings.
Yes, and so I think that it's going in the right path, and the only issue will be that those people that are on the council now can't live long enough to ensure that their predecessors are going to keep that. Because eventually, I feel like you get one corrupt person on that council, and you're in the exact same seat you were before.
Yeah, they sort of established a check in there with the fact that kings won't be chosen just based on the children they have. It's not going to be the prince rules anymore. But yeah, I feel, but that's the fun of it, because that's what I enjoyed about Law. That's a story for another day. We don't know what their grandchildren and children will do. We just know what these people have set up, what they had to go through.
If you want some fun stuff about that, and I'm not usually one to promote much on the fan fiction side of things, but one of the podcasts I listened to, the host at Sir_Travis, wrote this sweet little story about that takes place like 150 years in the future, and just has some little fun things to go about.
And that's it, is that this world continues spinning. And sure, at one point, I'm sure there will be someone corrupt, and we're going to take a couple steps back, because it's not going to happen overnight. And that's essentially what Dany was telling to Jon, is that it's such a large vision that not many people can see it. She still had it. She just thought she was on a more moral scale, a higher moral scale than everybody else, and that was her downfall. And that, to me, is what will be Dany's downfall, and not even to her own fault, but because she's been told
she was placed on this pedestal.
She literally, in Meereen, is called your radiance by just about everyone. Your radiance, your holiness. Like, she is a god to these people, and everyone waits on her hand and foot. Yeah, there's some dissent with the Sons of the Harpy and stuff like that.
Well, it's funny because of how much she works to break slavery, but she is so catered to. She's so weighted on hand and foot with a lot of different things. But no, and that T-Brad from Twitter put it the best, I think, that it was just a tragic and beautiful story.
Yeah.
It was just very well done. I think it's going to be even more well done in the books. I think it's going to be spectacular to see her descent and what's going through her mind throughout all that. But I'm pleased with the way it went. Even if the wheel is still there in a fashion, it looks like they have to break it spoke by spoke.
It's a little wobbly right now. So Dany's vision, and that's, I think, sort of the hope we're left on, is Dany's vision is being carried out still. Tyrion is still an idealist of breaking the wheel. Samwell Tarly clearly wants the wheel broken. Everyone there was in agreement to this
democratic style.
Well,
but quote,
everyone there sort of is in alignment about
like
breaking
the irony of seeing, that final ruling scene is of a small council meeting, of a group of people determining what's best for everybody else.
Yeah.
Which is the antithesis of everything that she strove for. It is still the same thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But instead of having Bran come in and say, this is how it needs to be done, it's handled more segmentedly, where each section, has an input, and you actually have an input. They're all on equal grounds, even with
Well, that's it. Yeah, you're in charge of this, you're in charge of this, you're in charge of this. You all tell me, Tyrion, the Hand, and I will relay that to Bran, is essentially
he'll give
what
his
it
input,
is.
but he's, because of him being just, the walking encyclopedia, he's going to say, no, you're right, that's a great decision.
Yeah, you should do that.
Maybe instead try thinking of doing it this way, or doing
exactly.
that. This person went and failed doing
Valerion the Fifth built
Exactly.
it this way, and it collapsed, so maybe we should instead install it here, and that'll be better. Hey, everybody happy.
Exactly.
That type of thing. Yeah. I want to touch on the Reddit post.
Yes, so that's where I was going next.
Our listener, Sid, again wrote into us later on to send us a Reddit post that was a comparison between the book and the show of Tyrion Lannister, and basically where the show went wrong and why. And it had revealed some book stuff to me that I didn't really pay attention to.
So the main thing that it points out is how, again, happy ending Tyrion's story is in this, when the big revelation that we get is from George Martin about Tyrion's character and who he is and what he's expected to be throughout the book series.
Yeah.
And it is not what I'm not surprised. And especially since I found that out, I've picked up on some things. So the main gist of it is that Tyrion is the villain.
Yes.
He is the bad guy. Tyrion Lannister, the villain of A Song of Ice and Fire. Or at least one of.
A villain, yeah.
Because, obviously we get hundreds of villainous people going around and being awful, but when I was reading that, it didn't shock me, didn't surprise me, and the more I've read since I've heard that, the more and more I'm seeing the tendrils.
Especially with
early on.
Our reread, Tyrion just crushed the Singer's hand and got into his first fight. Yeah, this article is basically pointing out how Tyrion is essentially being set up so that we as the reader do fall in love with him and think he's clever and witty and funny, only to have that rug pulled out from under us when it's revealed that he's going to sort of indulge his darker side, which in Dance of Dragons we definitely get a good sight of.
So can I first mention the complete opposite story arcings and how they work with Tyrion and Jaime. Jaime is this detestable character, this terrible person that nobody likes, that we grow to love, that we can't help but love towards the end of his storylines, the end of Feast, the end of Dance, and all that. Whereas Tyrion is the opposite. We start right off the bat. We just really like him. He's a likable character. He's funny. He's witty. He's clever. He's, just doing some badass stuff. But he has those darker tendencies, that capability to crush a man's fingers with his boot, to, tease and taunt and hurt and harm. He's a vile guy. And it just goes back to show George Martin's skill of writing, where he always mentions, he doesn't write in black and white. That's not how things are. It's not real. It's everybody has some good. Everybody has some bad. And you have to take those both into consideration. And similar with Dany, she is so good to herself, so pure and so, noble. She doesn't see the evil carnage she's causing with burning these cities, with, becoming this tyrant.
Well, that's it. This, if you guys would like to find this article for yourself, it was posted on Reddit by D. Steefy. That's DSTEFFEE on A Song of Ice and Fire Reddit. It's a great read. The Martin quote he basically says was spoken in 1999. 1999 after the release of A Clash of Kings. And it still has me shook. I'm reading it again just because I've got to admit I kind of like Tyrion Lannister. He's the villain, of course, but hey, there's nothing like a good villain. It hurts me, but
do you think he was only referring to Clash? That he's made out to be the villain in Clash? because I really don't foresee him.
Who the hell knows what George said? Like, and that's it. You never, meaning when he says
that was 1999. That was 20 years ago. Is that 20?
My
Jesus
lantern.
Christ, 20 years ago. So that was 20 years ago. Everything could have changed.
Yeah, definitely.
So we need to be careful in taking too much stock in something that he said 20 years ago and probably doesn't even remember saying.
But it's still an interesting thought that Tyrion is being set up as this character, and then slowly in A Dance with Dragons we see him descending into this more malicious, more callous individual who is being set up and primed maybe to one day whisper in Jon Snow's ear that he should kill Daenerys Targaryen.
Right.
That type of thing. Who knows what it could be potentially setting up, where he is the demonic little imp whispering in someone's ear.
Right.
And so Sid, Gigi, and Todd Bradley, thank you all for writing into us your thoughts on the show. And anyone else on Twitter that we didn't shout out or give a message to, we apologize. There was just a lot we wanted to cover, and so we thought these topics sort of had the chunkiest discussion we could dive into, as well as just not hating on why this season sucked, because I'm kind of tired of talking about why it sucked with the bad writing and all that stuff that everyone.
Yeah,
I want to talk about what we like.
This episode is a celebration of what we enjoyed about the show.
But I was thinking, now that we're sort of at the wrap up part of it, let's give some lists. So, which season would you say was your most favorite and least favorite?
So, let's see. Because I told you not to tell me these ones so that I could kind of do it on the fly, obviously, and be a little more natural. The favorite one is tough, so I'll probably do my least favorite first. And it's probably got to be season 7.
Okay.
I didn't dislike it. I didn't dislike any of this show. Maybe specific parts of episodes.
Yeah.
But overall, I enjoyed every season. I think the main reasons that I dislike season 7 the most, it was the beginning of the end of the show.
Yeah.
So that's when we started knowing that season 8 is going to be the last season. That there's a lot of jetpacking.
There was only 6 episodes. They were cutting it in half.
And so it was kind of just this melancholy time in the fandom where it was, we're closing out this epic adventure and it's going to end. And then, it was seeing these stories coming to a close was sad. Granted, it had some of my all-time favorite scenes, which I don't want to space specifically because we'll go over a few of those. That'll be one of my questions if you don't have that also.
Yeah.
But, I think if I had to pick a least favorite, it's between that one and season 5.
Mine's season 5, hands down 100%. Mainly because of the Dornish storyline. Yeah. But also because things are a little stagnant as far as Marine and that type of stuff. It's a lot of positioning and to get people into place for season 6, which I understand. Again, I don't just skip season 5. I don't think it ruins the show. It just is my least favorite when I'm watching it. Mainly because I'm super excited to get into season 6. So that will segue into what's your favorite. Do you have a favorite?
So I have a favorite. I was gonna let you do yours first, but I'll
do mine. Mine is probably 2, season 2. I love Blackwater. I feel like Tyrion as Hand of the King in King's Landing, dealing with Joffrey, dealing with the Hound, dealing with Cersei is prime Tyrion.
Yes.
We've got Tywin still around at that time, and it's the best thing ever. We've got Marjorie Tyrell starting to become a player at that point. Robb Stark is still alive with his mother. The War of the Five Kings is still on. It's a very who's who of who's going to win this battle, and you don't know. And then we get fucking Blackwater as a season sort of cap at episode 9. And Blackwater was breathtaking the first time I saw it when the ships exploded and just looked incredible. Yeah. And then we get the season finale with Arya going and getting the coin and just so much good stuff. The acting was on point, and it set up much of the larger story. So, season 2 was probably hands down my favorite season.
Cool. So, mine was season 1. And I don't want to say it's purely because that's direct directly from the content that Martin had provided, but mainly because it was just so well realized. Because I'd read the books at this point already, or started reading, and to have read the books and have it be my initial read through, because we mentioned on our reread a lot how little we grasp from this story, just because of how complete it is.
Yeah.
And so to have that, I've already read them, but now to see it on television and to be able to pull out these extra characters and just how to the books they got that first season.
Yeah.
It was just so well done.
It really
so
was.
Well paced. Every actor
almost
was
to
just
the
killing.
line.
Yeah, like
dialogue
it was
even
outstanding. And I don't think that there would have been a better way to draw in an audience to one of the greatest television series ever made. It's up there. Sid had mentioned this list that he had thought that he was expecting that the season finale to be on par with, but that he was very disappointed it wasn't.
Yeah.
Whereas I disagree, up there with Sopranos and Breaking Bad and Lost and all of those, definitely not on par with like the Dexter season.
Yeah,
finale,
see, a lot of people are comparing it to the similar. Dexter, for me, Dexter is a show that ruined the rest of the series for me. I can't go back and watch Dexter because I really detest the ending. I'm not calling for a redo.
No, I'm very disappointed, but
I enjoyed the seasons with Dexter actually up until season 4 is when I enjoyed it.
Me too.
And then it went downhill for me, but I mean, it is what it is. I don't enjoy Dexter anymore. I really did, and then I just didn't because I thought the writing actually sort of did screw it up for me. Game of Thrones is not in that boat. And Dexter is the only show for me that is.
Right,
it is.
right.
It's a standalone island. So far, every show that I've been invested in that's wrapped up has done so in a relatively satisfying way for me. Whether or not I'm pleased by the decisions characters make, or which actually will lead me into my next question, which is, what do you think was the best arc? Who had your favorite arc of the show?
I don't know if I feel like it's everyone's answer, but I want to say it's going to be Arya. But the problem is hers isn't. It's very linear.
Yeah.
It's very much what you'd expect from her, and so for well realized arcs, I God damn it. And I don't... God damn it.
Do it.
I have to go with Theon Greyjoy.
Yep.
I fucking hated him until season 8, episode 2, man. Like,
he reunited with
fucking
Sansa.
hated him. But Alfie Allen fucking did just such an unbelievable job just making this character detestable and then likable, but then turning it again and being like, fuck you, you motherfucker, I'm done with you, I'm never fucking... And then here he comes back up again, and it's like, oh, is he gonna...
Why are we wasting time on this?
And then, and so he had a great death scene. He got the validation from the Stark that he dishonored himself with, and like, it was just such a... Like, anyone that says D&D's writing is bad, look at Alfie Allen's fucking Theon's story. And,
was great.
I don't know how much of it was from Martin and how much was from D&D, but fuck me, he had a great story arc.
Really
and I hate it. I hate it because I hate Theon. I hate him so much, but god damn, it was a good arc.
As a honorable mention, I would like to say for an arc that I really enjoyed was Melisandre's. Watching her go from this all-powerful sorceress to... sort of wavering in her faith when Stannis was lost, and she really didn't know what to do, and then she realized that everything she had done, she was wrong with Stannis being Azor Ahai, and then she kind of didn't give a shit with resurrecting Jon Snow, and then Jon Snow came back, and she was like, holy shit, things are still working, and then she played a pretty pivotal role in the long night with the fight against the dead.
So,
and the actress nailed it.
I know some people were upset with how she vanished, and well, why did she even leave and go? And it's like, well, hey, she was going to be massacred by Davos, so she didn't. And that character is always mysterious. That's the point of it. Who knows what the fuck she was doing? Maybe she was learning a spell how to cast fucking light a rock 30,000 times. But I saw the greatest meme about that. I think you might have showed it to me, where it's it was the D&D thing where it's the sorceress is coming in. She tries to light one of them, but she makes the attempt to light all of them and gets a nat 20 crit. Yeah. They all burst into flames.
My favorite arc, I gotta say, is probably the Hound.
Oh, yeah.
Because he goes from literally the prince's dog, his lackey, his fucking cutthroat, to this heroically noble figure who slays,
he's a true knight.
Who slays his monstrous brother in a burning city to sort of put an end to his brother's scourge of evil. And he does. He takes him down at the sacrifice of his own life before telling, I would venture to guess, the one person he cares about the most in the world to go and leave and live her life and not follow him down this path of hatred and revenge.
Yeah.
And it was fucking beautiful. The actor nailed it. Like, when I picture the Hound, I picture Rory McCain. Yeah. I picture him now, and just that he was funny. He had some of the best one-liners.
He's a
badass.
Dry,
he's scary, intimidating, but he's soft, and you want to just hug the dude because it's sad and
it's tragic.
His shit with his brother, and then how he kind of wants to be hated because he's a monster, but he really just wants to be loved. But he hates knights, and
love.
To wrap it all up, it was just him and Arya heading down the King's Road together, and then he tells her to go and live her life. And I think that that's a big reason why she went west to Westeros, was because the Hound said, just go.
Because they became best friends.
Well, that was it.
And so I really like the imagery and the David versus Goliath thing. With, the Hound in the mountains.
Yeah.
And then, like you mentioned, he's in this burning city, and so he's overcoming not just the fire, but his brother.
Yeah.
And like the
all
two
of
biggest
his fears at once,
all of them. And for him to...
And his brother literally has taken the manifestation... I'm saying literally so much this episode, but he's taking the physical manifestation of his evil. That's why the Hound says, that's you, that's what you've always been. Yep. You've always been this ugly, monstrous thing, this undead, unfeeling, uncaring monster. And it's time to end that, and he does, and he goes out gloriously. He almost got Oberyn martelled, and I would have wept.
Yeah.
But instead, he went out, taking them both out, and that's exactly how I sort of always pictured him going out, was in that final fight with his brother. And so I think the Hound's arc was just amazingly done.
And I think that it wouldn't have been as well-rounded if he did not tell Arya what he did.
No, exactly.
And I really, the actor himself, the way he grabbed her by the cuff of her neck, right? Like in that, it wasn't even I don't even want to call it a fatherly way.
Oh, like a mentor.
Like an uncle or a godfather.
A friend.
A friend.
Look at me. Listen to me.
You can come with me. I'm not telling you can't.
Who can stop you?
Do you want to be a miserable bitch forever?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what you're going to be. Or you can leave. You've helped me. You've helped who you're Arya fucking Stark.
You killed the
killer
Night King.
Of the Night King.
You just went and got laid for the first time. Like,
you
want to go try more of that stuff?
Do whatever you want to do, but this is not what you need to do right now.
Yeah, that's it. And I think Arya, in her future journeys and adventures, will think about the Hound almost constantly.
Very much as we mentioned in our book reread, how she's got the mantras of Syrio Forel for years in her mind. I think she's going to have those images, those moments. I
think the Hound will be up there with Ned Stark as far as like that idealist that I want to be like my dad. I want to be like Sandor.
Yes, because
this honorable.
Which is because again, we're reading the first book right now. I'm sure most of you who are listening to this are aware of that, and he makes his contempt known for knights, but. In my mind, and even early on in Sansa's mind, especially, he does. He epitomizes what a knight is. You should do things because it's right, not because you have the title and the power, and nobody's going to stop you from doing it.
He's not 100% a good person,
No.
That's what's wonderful about it. It's great because both in the shows and the book, both the Hound and Brienne, a woman, they are true knights. They are what knights should be.
But they're both completely different people.
Not at all. Yeah, exactly.
Well, opposite ends of the same spectrum.
And not like really allowed knighthood. The Hound because of just his rash, brutal nature, who's ever gonna knight him, and Brienne because she's a woman, which is just dumb and sexist anyway.
But there they are, the two best fighters in the realm,
and one of them is scarred, will kill savagely without much thought, protecting people or himself. Whereas there's Brienne who will self-sacrifice herself almost for anyone. If it's right or wrong.
As awful of a person as he's supposed to be, he's the guard of the prince. He guards Arya. He guards the Stark girls.
Sansa,
like these are the things he does. But he's this awful, terrible person, and we come to realize how untrue that is.
He's just tortured. He's a tortured soul, and he takes it out. I mean,
that's a good one. I like that.
He's got a ton of things wrong with him, but the Hound is just amazing.
Do you have a least favorite arc?
Probably.
I feel like that one's easy because I mean, pick a sand snake, man.
A sand snake, fuck. Yeah. But I mean, as far as like major characters, I would probably say Jon Snow, but. That's just and that's not bad. Like, I'm not attributing that to bad writing because I really like that Jon ends up north of the Wall and says "fuck my heritage."
Yeah, your least favorite doesn't have to be because.
It's mainly because I've never really been invested in Jon Snow all that much. I thought it was great. I was really invested in him after his resurrection, and he did the Battle of the Bastards and was doing shit. But then after that, he kind of fell into this "I don't want it" Jon Snow, which I know has become a meme. But again. To me, that's always just been Jon, so it's not even bad writing. It's just that's Jon Snow, and so like
he's not an exciting dude.
Yeah, he's not an exciting dude. So like, I would have liked to have seen, maybe like a Mad Jon twist where Jon's the Targaryen.
That'd be cool too,
who goes and burns
where he just
everything.
Loses it and
like just see something crazy. Some sort of crazy character turn for him, or maybe not even necessarily crazy, but just drastic, necessary. But again. Kit Harington, I think, nailed it. I enjoyed Jon Snow. I love that he ended up north of the Wall. His scene with Arya had me crying like a baby. But I think just arc-wise, it was mainly that I was kind of hoping for a little bit more. Yeah, I expected Jon to ride a dragon and defeat the Long Night and possibly kill Dany. I figured there'd be something there. But there wasn't really anything that was like, oh, whoa, that's crazy.
Well, yeah, nothing that made his arc any more memorable than
And so,
else's.
I know a lot of people were pissed about, like, Jaime and Cersei's arcs, which, for me, I always kind of thought they'd be better in the books anyway. The Valonqar was never once mentioned in the show, so that was totally people projecting their own bullshit, so that one was on you. I don't feel any sympathy that the Valonqar prophecy wasn't a thing.
Not the Valonqar part of it, anyway.
Well, that was it. It was literally only about Cersei becoming queen and then her children dying. There was nothing about Cersei dying herself. So, like, the people being angry about that was, I honestly think it's just people being angry that Jaime made the wrong choice and saying it's bad writing.
Yeah, and that's another thing that we mentioned during that episode, I think, and if not, I'll mention it again now, that Jaime is a great character. He was very well done. Unfortunately, not everyone...
Jaime's a bad person.
It doesn't make
Jaime
the
Lannister is a bad fucking person.
Like, we love him.
And he tends to act on his impulses, his rash, bad decision impulses.
And so as much as we all hate it, because, like, and it's funny to say, because first read and reread, I did not like Brienne of Tarth. Mm-hmm. I did not like her. I don't know what it was. I don't know why. I have no logical reasons for that. I didn't like her, those two. This, my last reread, and I'm sure coming up once we see her again. And in the show especially, after my third reread, and then when I watched the show,
girl.
Oh my God, I am in love with that woman.
Girl,
she is just, and off screen too, like she's just an outstanding
she's on
person.
Fire, man.
Like she's this fucking good for you. Fucking get it. But I couldn't stand Brienne of Tarth. She annoyed the fuck out of me. Now, I adore her. Mm-hmm. Fuck you, Jaime Lannister, you motherfucker.
Yeah, you left her in the cold.
But, God, I wish he stayed. But it's not wrong. It's not against his character. It's not against the nature of Jaime Lannister.
And a lot of people said that whole setup really sort of downplayed Brienne's character of her, she's crying in the cold over a man. And it was like, well, no. Like, because everyone knows Brienne's a fucking badass at this point. She's been knighted. She's been fighting in the Long Night. She's about to go be made the head of the Kingsguard. It's for Brienne. This was her shot at love, and it was reciprocated, and she knows it's reciprocated at this point. She knows that Jaime Lannister loves her. She just also knows that he loves his sister, and she's facing impending death, and so he's choosing to go and not let her die alone, which essentially means he's not that he doesn't love Brienne. He got a quickie and then he's going. So it's not Brienne.
That's not what
sitting there
meant.
saying, I'm nothing without a man. She's crying for what could have been, for what Jaime could have been, for the decision he's making there. That's why she's saying, stay with me here and be the Jaime Lannister I know you can be. You don't need to go do that and give in to this.
That's exactly
And that's what he says, is I'm pretty much, I give in to my worst impulses, and you should know that by now.
Yes, and that's it for me, is that she's not crying at the loss of her man. She's crying for Jaime Lannister.
For the
Those
loss
are tears
of,
for him.
yeah.
Because he's losing himself. He's
becoming the Kingslayer.
He's falling back into the Kingslayer.
He's not Jaime Lannister now.
She just had hope for him, and so it's not she can't move on without him. She can't, because she clearly does. And
she will, yeah. She'll be successful as fuck.
She's too strong of a person to let that
destroy
ruin her. But it doesn't mean that she can't cry for him.
Absolutely.
At the fact that you made so much progress.
Yeah,
you were so
you
close
fought
to
with humanity against the Long Night.
You don't have to go back to that person you were before.
Which is, I think, why they included the scene of her filling out the book.
Yes,
she still loves Jaime Lannister and respects him and knows he was honorable. And so she wants that part of him to be remembered. And that's why I think she writes it as he died for his queen. Because that to him was it, is that him and his sister came into this world. Yes, it's his queen and his lover, that whole thing. But he's
also Lord Commander of her Kingsguard.
But at that point, I also don't think it was who is he choosing? Who does he love? Is it
right?
It's not like a love triangle. It's not that type of thing. I truly think at this point, Jaime isn't interested in Cersei so much as a lover.
Yeah,
it's
his
more
sister.
of this loyalty to it. We came into and we did have this love interest, so there's a tight bond.
But that's not what it's about.
And they are marching down there to kill her alone.
Yes.
She's pregnant. She has no children left. She's got Qyburn in the mountain,
the fake mountain.
And so I want to be there when it's her time. And so he chose wrong, and we hated it, and it sucked. But it makes sense for Jaime Lannister. Yes. And so, did you have any questions to pose or anything like that?
I think we mostly covered them. Do you have... So I wanted to touch this last topic, I think. There's millions more we can get into, and we'll touch upon that throughout our book reread episodes as we hit stuff just to, broach on. But for now, I want to ask, what was your favorite battle?
Ooh.
I have mine in mind, hands down.
Yeah, all right. So I would say it's probably between Hardhome and the Battle of the Bastards.
Okay.
And every battle scene in the last season I loved. I fucking
a lot of people are upset about putting the Long Night into the top, and a lot of people are putting it into the top. And so
I love the Long Night.
Yeah.
I just think I'm thinking back into as far as it made me feel. I'm going to say Hardhome.
Okay.
Because
the least battling of all the battles.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with it, though.
It was so well shot, so well filmed, and that's the first time we get that Valyrian steel can fight them. And we get that loud ringing and the look of shock on both Jon and the White Walker's face of just like, oh, and then Jon kills him. And then running with Tormund and fucking Ed and 1-1 to the sea, and then the gates collapse and the dead pour through, and that's when we get the image of the horses with the Night King and his posse up on the hill. And then
the hand raise,
come at me, bro. It was just,
and it always does that like bell chime or like that clink of the chains.
I remember at the end of the episode, I had my hands covering my nose and my mouth, just sitting with my elbows on my knees, just in shock of like, holy shit, that was good. But every single battle that's taken place in the scene, I've loved and has had me on the edge of my seat. But I just say Hardhome for how hard and impactful it hit me. It hit me hard in the home.
right in the home.
What's yours? Favorite battle?
Hands down, no questions asked, Battle of Blackwater.
Oh, hell yeah.
I can't, like, as much, I love the Battle of the Bastards. It's
so
right
good.
in there. It's so well done. I loved Long Night. It was just so hard and scary and claustrophobic, but Blackwater with,
Stannis.
like, Stannis is coming in, Tyrion versus Stannis, and, like, and funny enough, like, it's nowhere near true to the books.
Yeah.
And I absolutely,
No,
more
it was
than
really
any,
well done.
that's one of the ones that I wish it could have been more to the books. And yet it's still my favorite battle scene in the show, because there's no Bridge of Fire, there's no, there's a lot of shit in the books that don't happen in there.
The
but
chain.
And so but God, it's so well realized.
Yeah,
it's so well done.
The siege aspect of it, where you really get that feel for it, of there's an army about to knock down.
Yeah, all the scenes with Cersei and Sansa.
That's pretty much it. It all takes place pretty much from the perspective of the Lannisters.
Mm-hmm.
We do get some Sansa stuff with her and Cersei, which are two of the best scenes containing, or some of the best scenes containing Cersei and Sansa is during Blackwater, when Cersei's just getting fucking wine
getting
drunk,
ready to tell her how she could kill her kids there with the poison.
Let me
she'd rather
just
do that.
tell you what's what, little dove. Like, here's some shit. Like,
so that scene right
Blackwater,
there,
so
Blackwater is my all-time favorite battle scene. Honorable mentions to all
Stannis getting dragged away after fucking Tywin shows up and fight, you cowards.
So speaking of Tywin, that's one of the things that I really wish above all that they had not excluded. They made it a deleted scene, but the Tywin Pycelle scene on the beach, it's just I don't think, and because I've talked to, obviously you have it too, a lot of people about this show, and a lot of people I've talked to aren't even aware
that it's an act,
that Pycelle is acting, that he is not this old decrepit.
Well, they do show a scene, like, I think it's season 5 or 6, where
when he's in the bed with the horse,
he does his
he stretches,
Pilates.
But it's like, it's so quick, and which is the point of Game of Thrones, to just kind of go over that, but it doesn't. I don't think a lot of people catch it.
Tywin on the beach, where Tywin
calls
him
out
and just tells him, enough, stop.
Am I the only one
to see through this ruse? And even Pycelle says, sometimes I have trouble
believing it
people
myself.
Believe it, and we learned that it's just an act, this ditzy old man who can't move quick, and Tywin calls him on his shit. I miss Tywin Lannister's presence so much in the story.
No kidding.
But, so, the big one, do you have an inductee?
For the show.
For the entire show. Season 1 to season 8.
I wasn't expecting that.
Induct one person to the Brotherhood.
Shit, man. Did you think of this at all beforehand? So you have one?
Yeah.
So why don't you take care of yours while I contemplate this
show inductee, and I realized that all of my lists, my tops and arcs and episodes and seasons, and none of them really align. I'm all over the place, and I'm gonna do that with my inductee, but it's really because there's just so much of this show that I enjoy.
Yeah.
So my entire series inductee is going to Miss Arya Stark. From the little girl who was standing in the wagon to watch Robert arriving, to the faceless assassin watching her bastard brother Jon Snow arrive with the Dragon Queen. I've been invested in her story like few others, and to watch her go from that little girl through her training, through the loss of her father, mother, brother, wolf, sister, torn apart from everyone she's ever known, and then she goes and trains on her own, where in the book we're told that she's fucking 8 years old. This is a young little girl doing these terrifying things in this terrifying world, and then to come back and actually get shit done. I know people were upset that she didn't get through all of her lists, and they sort of asked why with the faceless training, but I believe the faceless training was a means to an end for the Night King. It explained how she was able to do that, and that again is just
that in the phrase.
That's a fucking pinprick on the map for her.
Yes.
It's not the most significant thing I think in her life for her to do. Killing the Night King, even, I don't think is the most significant thing.
It's just
she's
another
do.
Adventure that she's got on there, another notch on her belt.
And so she will continue to use the Faceless Men training, and everything the Hound taught her, and everything Syrio Forel taught her, and everything Ned Stark taught her, and everything Jon Snow taught her, because that's who Arya is. And
yeah, see, and I didn't even think of that. Even since the very beginning, she's had a mantra in her mind from one of her mentors, sticking with the pointy end.
Mm-hmm.
And she always keeps this advice from her mentors.
Even Lady Crane in the show, who gave her What's West of Westeros. Like, well, not gave her, but that's where Arya came up with that one, was Lady Crane. And you could tell she sort of, like, she looked up to Lady Crane. She was this badass
Whereas
actress.
I think in the books she mentions, is it actually Nymeria who does do she flies south to Southernose, I think.
Yeah.
But one of the
Melissa
Targaryen.
Farman,
is it?
Yeah. Which read Fire and Blood.
I'm working on it. I'm getting my way through there.
So your inductee.
My inductee, and so it's a toss-up between these two. And so I'll pick one, and then I'll explain the other one. And it's almost for identical reasons. But I'm going to pick Daenerys Targaryen.
I almost picked Dany.
And I think it's because from episode 1, even though it was very tentative, she's had the same goal in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And she realized that goal. I know she died, and again, like Sid said, like Todd said, everyone, it's tragic. It's terrible that she didn't get to see her, full conquering, but she got the Iron Throne.
She got home.
That's what she got. She got home. She got where she needed to be. She was in the arms of the person she loved.
And all the good she did in Marine.
And that's
she liberated
she freed
thousands of slaves.
And so the other person who I was considering was Bran.
Yeah.
For similar reasons. Before he became the Three-Eyed Raven, he was so intent on being this honorable knight, this person who's just glorifying the
grand
realm.
Adventures, saving people.
Now he's the king.
Yeah.
Now he's done the grandest of adventures, but... Those are our thoughts on this show.
Yeah, I'm sad to see it go. There's supposedly some spin-offs to look forward to. I'm excited for that because anything in this world, I'm just excited to play in. If you hated the last season and now hate us because of our opinions on it, I'm sorry. I enjoyed it. We enjoyed it. Hopefully there was some good in it you could pick out that you enjoyed, and if not, hopefully you're still hopeful for the books.
Otherwise, we're always here and still willing and wanting to talk about it, so
Absolutely.
make sure you hit us
Send
up.
us any opinions.
We have all the socials, facebook.com/Brotherhood Podcast, Twitter @MannersWithout, Instagram @BrotherhoodWithout. We have our Gmail, withoutmannersbrotherhood@gmail.com.
We're on Patreon. We've got some extra Winds of Winter sample chapters that we read on Patreon. We got patreon.com/withoutmanners, so check that out if
Leave
you'd
us
like some additional content.
Rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts.
Leave us a rate-roo.
Rate-roo,
Rate-roo on Apple Podcasts.
Right. You guys know how to reach us. Let us know what you think of everything.
And if you wrote into us for this episode, we thank you. All the feedback we've been getting based on either the book or the show is great. Even if you guys hate the show and are opposed to us, that's
know why,
absolutely
man.
okay. Because we're all in it together. We're at one point or another large fans of this show who come together. You're listening to a podcast about Game of Thrones, so obviously you were a large fan of the show at one point. If
you're done with the show,
try the
our
books. Because the books are way better, and that's not a dig on the show in any way. As we've been saying for about an hour and 5 minutes now, we really enjoy it.
Yes.
The books are just so much better, and they're gonna end differently, and they're gonna, I believe,
similarly,
do it right, and take their time with it that's needed for this type of story, so that it sits a little better in our mouth. If not
necessarily,
if not
in the
what
world.
Happens, but how we get
occurs.
there.
Exactly.
And so,
exactly,
guys, just thanks for coming on this journey with us. The show may be done, but we are just getting into the juicy bits with the book, so we got plenty more content heading your way.
Yes.
So
I think our next episode after this will be Arya. No, what did we? Ned 8.
Ned 8.
Ned 8 should be the next one, I think, if I'm doing the math
Ned 8,
right.
Or it would be like Catelyn 4. I would. Believe,
there might be Cat 4, but either one. We always take inductees for those chapters as well. Otherwise, we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Valor to Harris.
Peace.